Emily had always been the type of person who said yes too easily. Yes to extra shifts at work. Yes to last-minute favors. Yes to helping people move, pet sit, or in this case, photograph her best friend's wedding, for free. It started innocently enough. 2 months before the wedding, her longtime friend, Sarah, called her late one evening. Emily still remembered the soft pleading in Sarah's voice. I'm in a bit of a bind. Our photographer bailed, and the wedding is just around the corner. You know your work is amazing, and you'd be doing me the biggest favor ever. Emily hesitated. Photography wasn't just a hobby, it was her job. She'd spent years building her portfolio, buying high-end gear with money scraped together from gigs and part-time jobs. Her weekends were usually booked solid with shoots. But it was Sarah. Her best friend since high school. The one who sat next to her at every heartbreak, who danced with her in dorm rooms, who once drove 5 hours just to bring her soup when she had the flu. So Emily said yes. Of course. She agreed to cover the whole day, from early morning bridal prep to the final dance at midnight. Sarah promised she and her fiancé, Jake, would take care of her. You'll be treated like a guest, Sarah had said. You'll be part of the celebration. But from the moment Emily arrived at the venue, a rustic vineyard tucked into the hills, something felt off. No one greeted her at the gate. The staff gave her blank stares when she asked where the bridal suite was. After 20 minutes of wandering, she found Sarah in a haze of makeup and nerves. Finally. God, we were wondering where you were. Can you start with the dress shots? Like, now. There was no hug. No warm smile. Just a rushed instruction and a finger pointed toward a rack of gowns. Emily brushed off the coldness, chalking it up to pre-wedding stress. She got to work. She photographed every detail with care, lace close-ups, shoe shots, the soft curve of the veil in the morning light. The bridesmaids barely acknowledged her. They posed when told, but never thanked her. One even rolled her eyes when Emily asked her to shift for better light. Jake's groomsmen were worse, snide jokes, barking commands like she was some intern, not a professional. Emily clenched her jaw and kept her head down. Hours passed. It was hot, her camera strap digging into her neck, her back aching. No one offered her water, a chair, or even a break. When the reception started, she quietly sat at an empty table in the back, editing photos on her laptop between speeches. Then Sarah came up to her. Can you not sit at a guest table? It's kind of weird. Emily stared at her. I was just editing. I thought you said I'd be treated like a guest. Sarah's tone shifted. You are, but you're also kind of working, right? Just hang back, okay? We'll get you food later. There was no food. She never ate. By the time the dancing began, Emily was dizzy. Her fingers shook from low blood sugar and exhaustion. She asked one of the staff if there was an extra plate from the buffet. The man told her everything was accounted for. She asked again later, this time a different waiter. Same response. She ended up crouched behind the DJ table for 10 minutes, trying to stop the spinning in her head. Still, she kept taking pictures. She captured the first dance, the laughter, the cake cutting. She caught the exact moment Sarah's dad cried during his speech. The kind of shot that would end up framed in someone's living room for decades. At 11:45 p.m., when the last sparkler had burned out and guests were packing up, Emily found Sarah and Jake near the dance floor. Hey, she said softly. I just wanted to ask about the payment. We hadn't really talked about it again after you asked me to do it. Sarah blinked. Wait, you wanted to be paid? Jake laughed. Actually laughed. I thought this was your gift to us, he said. You didn't buy us anything off the registry. Emily blinked back, stunned. I spent 12 hours working today. I missed every part of the celebration. Come on, Sarah said with a forced smile. Don't be dramatic. Emily stood there, motionless. A strange, powerful calm began to creep over her body. She looked down at her camera. Over 800 photos. Hours of memories. The most intimate moments of their lives, frozen in perfect frames. And in that moment, something in her snapped. Emily didn't say a word right away. She just stared at Sarah and Jake, both half drunk and beaming, too far gone in their own celebration to realize how cruel they'd just been. The word gift echoed in her mind like a slap. She felt like she was floating, hovering above her own body, watching someone else's humiliation. A gift? No one had even offered her a slice of cake. Jake clinked his glass against Sarah's and wandered off, laughing with one of his groomsmen. Sarah lingered, but only long enough to give Emily an awkward pat on the shoulder. We'll talk later, okay, she said, as if Emily had just made some petty fuss. And then she disappeared into the crowd, swallowed by music and glitter and light. Emily stood there, her camera still in hand, feeling more like a ghost than a guest. She packed up her things slowly, deliberately. She removed her lenses, wiped them with care, and slid them into their padded cases. She backed up the raw files onto her laptop, as she always did, habit, professionalism. She sat at the table in the corner, the same table where she'd been told not to sit, and stared at the folder on her screen, Sarah and Jake wedding. She opened a few of the files. There was Sarah, looking ethereal in her dress, a candid laugh caught midair. Jake, whispering something into her ear during the vows. Her father wiping a tear. The flower girl spinning on the grass in a swirl of white and sunlight. They were beautiful. And they didn't deserve a single one of them. Emily had always been taught to be kind. Her mother used to tell her that forgiveness was strength. That letting go was the higher path. But there, in that moment, surrounded by empty plates and wine-stained tablecloths, something hardened inside her. She thought of the years she'd spent learning this craft, hauling gear, studying light, pouring herself into every shoot like it was sacred. She thought of how Sarah had called her 2 weeks ago, panicked, and Emily had dropped everything to help. How she'd cancelled a paid maternity shoot to clear her schedule. And how not once, did anyone stop to ask if she was okay, if she needed water, if she was tired. The final straw came as she was walking to her car. She passed by a small group near the valet, where Jake was loudly recounting something to a friend. She heard her name. Yeah, Emily was here. She was fine. Honestly, we could have just had people use their phones. She's not, like, that amazing. That did it. No rage. No tears. Just, clarity. Emily got into her car, shut the door, and turned on the engine. But instead of pulling away, she opened her laptop again. The screen lit her face in the dark. She scrolled to the folder, selected every single photo, and hit delete. First from the folder. Then from the recycle bin. Then from the external backup. It took less than a minute. She sat there, the hum of the engine vibrating beneath her hands, her heart strangely steady. For a second, she thought she might regret it. But she didn't. The only thing she felt was peace. It wasn't until the next morning that Sarah called. Her voice was sugary sweet, but there was a slight tension behind it. Hey, Em. Just wanted to say thank you again for yesterday. Everyone said you were, like, super professional. Can't wait to see the photos. Emily stared at her phone. She let the silence stretch for a moment before answering. There aren't any. A pause. What? I deleted them. Another pause. Longer. Then Sarah laughed, though it was tight and unsure. Wait, you're kidding, right? No. You said it was a gift. And then Jake said I wasn't that amazing anyway. So I figured you wouldn't miss them. Silence. You're joking. I'm not. Sarah's voice shifted, shrill and sharp. You can't be serious. Emily, that was our wedding. You had one job. No, Sarah. I had a favor. One you turned into a job. One you disrespected me for. One you never intended to honor. We didn't mean, you said yes. And I changed my mind. Emily hung up. Her hands trembled, but she felt free. Not proud, not spiteful, just released. That afternoon, she went for a walk. The air was crisp, the sky sharp with autumn blue. For the first time in weeks, she left her camera at home. Emily didn't expect applause. But she also didn't expect the silence that followed. The next morning, her phone buzzed a few times. Not dozens of missed calls or angry rants, just a few quiet messages. One was from Sarah. Hey. So. I'm trying to understand what happened. Can we talk? Emily read it while sitting on her balcony, legs tucked up to her chest, sipping lukewarm coffee. Her stomach turned, not from guilt exactly, but from the uncertainty of how, or even if, she should respond. There were no threats. No smear campaigns. No online fury. Just a kind of tension, floating in the air like fog. She scrolled through her messages and saw that a few of the other bridesmaids had unfollowed her on Instagram. One of them, Julia, who used to send her funny memes every week, had removed her entirely. It wasn't aggressive. It was worse. It was distance. Even the people who had been neutral that day at the wedding didn't say anything. No one reached out to ask what her side was. No one asked how she felt. And maybe that was what hurt the most. Emily had spent the last few years showing up for all of them, for Sarah, for their little friend group that had survived since high school. She was the one who brought her camera to every birthday, every baby shower, every engagement party. And while no one ever demanded anything from her, it was always just expected. She'd smile. She'd shoot. She'd send over a few great shots afterward, like a reflex. And this time, when she didn't, they drifted. Quietly. Without confrontation. She sat with that silence for days. She went on long walks through the park near her apartment, watching the trees go amber and gold. She left her phone at home, took deep breaths, and tried to sort through the mix of emotions inside her. Relief, yes. But also grief. Because even though she knew she'd done the right thing for herself, she couldn't pretend it didn't cost her something real. She replayed pieces of Sarah's voicemail in her head. You didn't just delete photos, Emily. You deleted memories. Emily knew that was true. There were moments from that day that would never come again, parents dancing, inside jokes between siblings, the clink of glasses raised in toast. She hadn't destroyed them out of rage. She'd done it out of something quieter, something years in the making. A need to be seen not just as someone who was useful, but as someone who mattered. Still, it hurt. She opened her photo archives late one night, not looking for anything in particular, just chasing the comfort of old work. She paused on a set of candid portraits she'd taken of Sarah and her mom 2 years earlier. Just the two of them, sitting on a bench, arms around each other, laughing so hard Sarah had to wipe her eyes. She stared at the photo for a long time. That version of them had been real too. The love. The history. It wasn't bitterness that settled in her chest now, it was mourning. Not just for the friendship she'd lost, but for how slowly it had eroded. For how invisible she'd let herself become. A week later, she wrote back to Sarah. Just one sentence. I hope you still have those pictures from the garden 2 summers ago. Sarah didn't reply. At least not right away. But the next morning, Emily got an email with a subject line that simply said, "Found them." Attached was one of the photos, Sarah and her mom, faces sunlit, caught in a fit of laughter. There was no apology. No blame. Just that one image. Emily saved it to her desktop, leaned back in her chair, and let herself cry for the first time since the wedding. Not because she regretted what she'd done, but because part of growing up is learning when to let go of the version of a person you used to love, and accepting who they became instead. By the time the trees had gone bare and the mornings began to frost over, life had settled into something new for Emily. Quiet. Smaller, maybe. But clearer. She still hadn't heard from Sarah again. No long message. No explanation. Just that single photo, sent without comment, like a peace offering without the ceremony. Emily didn't know what it meant. Maybe Sarah didn't either. But strangely, she was okay with that. There's a kind of peace that comes after a storm, not when everything is fixed, but when you stop needing it to be. That's where Emily found herself now. Not triumphant. Not bitter. Just, standing in the aftermath, looking around, and realizing she was still here. Still whole. Still her. She picked up work slowly. She didn't post much. She stopped advertising herself as available anytime. And she started saying no, to people, to events, to anything that didn't feel right. It was terrifying at first. But also deeply freeing. One weekend in November, she agreed to shoot a small elopement in the woods outside the city. Just the couple, their dog, and a handful of close friends. No DJ. No cake. Just two people who couldn't stop smiling at each other beneath the golden light of the pines. During the ceremony, Emily caught herself tearing up behind the lens. It wasn't sadness. It was that same deep ache you feel when something touches a part of you that had gone quiet. Afterward, as she packed her gear, the bride walked up to her with a thermos of cider and said, "Hey. You were incredible. Thank you for the way you saw us today. Not for taking pictures. Not for making us look good. But, for the way you saw us." That one sentence unraveled something in Emily's chest she hadn't realized was still tight. She went home that night, downloaded the photos, and stared at them one by one. Not just for exposure or composition, but for the emotion, the honesty. She saw something familiar in the bride's eyes. Someone who wanted to be seen. Really seen. It reminded Emily why she ever picked up a camera to begin with. Not to impress. Not to be praised. But to capture what's real, what's raw, what we're afraid to lose. She started a new folder on her desktop. Still moments. It wasn't for clients. It wasn't for social media. It was for her. A quiet collection of the world as it was when no one was performing. A toddler falling asleep in his mother's arms on a subway bench. A man tying his husband's shoelace on a hiking trail. A street musician closing his eyes in the middle of a solo. No retouching. No perfection. Just life. Real and unfiltered. Emily still thought about Sarah from time to time. She didn't hate her. She wasn't angry anymore. If anything, she hoped she was happy. She hoped she'd found a way to hold on to what really mattered from that day, even without the photos. As for Emily, she had learned the difference between being needed and being valued. And that lesson, while painful, had given her something no camera ever could. Clarity. Perspective. And the freedom to never lose herself again for someone else's story. Because this time, the focus was finally on her. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and share it with your friends. It really helps the channel grow, and I truly appreciate it. Thank you.